Hi, church. I really miss you. And the few times recently that a few people have come by the church or I'd happened upon someone when I've gone out, I've been so excited to see real people, to see my sisters and brothers, my church family, as we like to say. And that's why it's so good that we're starting to think about how we're going to regather as the church, and why it's so good that we're going to do it in a way that really protects one another. So I have news to share on that. Our reopening team has started its work for how we're going to regather as the church and when that might start to happen. And I can't give you all of the details yet because they're still formulating those. It's important for us to do this in a way that protects one another, which is to say that while we might want to get together really soon, some of us, it's more important for us to get together well. So the plan that we're working on is based on science. It's based on our vision, which is grounded in Scripture. And we're going to do this in a way that really makes sense to Christ Church. And so it's going to be different, but it's also going to be about what we really hold dear. And most of all, that's each other. So we are going to have our first outdoor worship gathering on July 5th. We're going to start our gatherings outdoors, and we're going to start with worship. And when we get together outdoors, some of it will be familiar, we'll be out in the pavilion, but some of it's also going to feel different because we're going to need to take protective measures in order to protect one another and to be part of our community's efforts to protect each other. So we're going to send more information out about that as the reopening team gets that together and as the session approves a plan. But for now, you can look forward to July 5th if you want to come to an in-person worship service with the church, weather permitting, out at the pavilion. And even as we start regathering as the church for in-person worship, probably mostly outdoors when we're in our good weather months, we are also going to continue to live stream our worship, so those who are away from the service or aren't quite ready to be in person with the church yet are going to be able to take part in our worship via Facebook Live. So we continue to process what is going on with these days as they evolve, and I've given you two links with this email. One is to an article from Christianity Today that describes the ministry of three women right here in Cleveland and how they have been serving vulnerable and disadvantaged communities in the Cleveland area. And if you read far enough in the article, you'll even hear Chesterland get mentioned and a connection between one of these ministries and Mayfield Church. So I encourage you to take a look at that and think about how are we trying to care for people who are vulnerable right here in our community. And that's something that we'll need to think more about as our mission engines kind of get restarted. Another thing to look at is an article by Christianity Today editor Timothy Dalrymple. Timothy talks about God's tender care for each of us. And I hope that in the struggles of this time, you have learned something about God's care for you. And if you feel like you haven't learned that yet, I would ask you to be open to it. Because as we receive God's care for us, what happens is that our hearts and our lives are transformed. So we're going to want to show God's care for someone else. That is the cue for this video to end. The drums have begun, and I really look forward to hearing that kind of drumming in an outdoor worship service with you on July 5th, weather permitting, and we'll continue to walk together as the church, loving God, sharing relationships, and serving others from the heart of Christ. God be with you all.